What people don't understand is that art is a huge political mechanism. Art is not only there for our appreciation. Art can be and is often used for propaganda and marketing. And precisely what makes it so effective is the fact that people don't expect it to be so. Of course, there are obvious political artists like Banksy, for example. However, what's most effective is the subtle influence. There were even whole movements based upon this type of influence. For example, socialist realism, which if you're interested in, watch this video. Today, I'm going to discuss this type of subtle propaganda and how you and I have been influenced by it without even noticing. In 1970, the French philosopher Louis Althusser wrote an essay, Idéologie et appareil idéologique d'État, where he introduced the concept of ideological state apparatuses. Althusser distinguished ideological state apparatuses like schools, family, media, and religion from repressive state apparatuses like the police or the army as institutions that maintain capitalist power not through direct force, but by shaping individuals' beliefs and consent. So, how does art function as an ideological state apparatus? Art is a reproducing ideology. So, it's never neutral. It's created within a culture, so it often reflects and reinforces the beliefs, values, and power structures of that society. Art also encourages people to understand who they are and where they fit in society, whether as viewers or creators, often accepting existing social roles as normal. In capitalist societies, art is bought and sold. Even art that criticizes the system can be turned into a commodity, which reduces its challenge to the system. For example, Andy Warhol, who made a fortune doing this. Now, it's important to understand that art is also a form of resistance. Art isn't just a tool for the ruling class. Its ideological nature also allows for subversion. Because art carries ideas, it can also question or oppose dominant beliefs. So, art makes people think differently about society and power, and potentially encourages resistance. Radical art is often softened, commercialized, or reinterpreted, so it no longer threatens the dominant system. Earlier this year, I made a video where I talk about the iconoclasm in the West, which basically I described as the destruction of order. The 20th century introduced a new kind of destruction, not physical, but conceptual. Traditional icons of beauty, order, and truth were suddenly the suspect. The 1960s questioned everything. Institutions corrupt, traditions oppressive, standards elitist. Suddenly, not knowing how to paint became a virtue. Artists stopped being creators and became provocateurs. Right now, what is happening is we are suffering the consequences of the iconoclasm. In his interview in 1980, Yuri Bezmenov, a former KGB agent, speaks about the Soviet Union's intent to demoralize and destabilize the West. He describes it as a slow process that, using psychological warfare, aims to change the perception of reality to such an extent that despite the availability of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interest of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. Whether it was a Soviet coup or simply a natural process, today's generation is living proof of a demoralized society. Bezmenov describes different stages of this process. The demoralization stage takes 15 to 20 years, which is the time that it takes to educate at least one generation. During this time, a single narrative is being implanted without challenge, shaping people who will later hold positions of power. Once demoralized, they can no longer evaluate truth, making facts and real information ineffective because they have been indoctrinated through schools, media, and religion, which are ideological state apparatuses. And many people today will argue that this is no longer effective because we have an abundance of sources available to us through the internet, whereas before you only had one source available, which was the newspaper or the television, and you had no choice of what you would be consuming. Actually, ideological state apparatuses are even more powerful today than before. Think about it. You have a smartphone. Everywhere you go, you take your smartphone, and you check your smartphone multiple times a day. The average person spends almost 3 hours a day on social media. And your social media is no longer about catching up with friends. It's really a consumption mechanism. When you watch a reel that tells you should go do something, do you question the source of that reel? Do you look into the person's background and if they actually have authority on the subject? Usually not, and the algorithm works in such a way that it offers you content that you are prone to agree with. You are so much more susceptible today to ideological subversion than you think. Jonathan Haidt said that social media has dissolved the mortar of trust, belief in institutions, and shared reality. In other words, we are living in a world where we can never know who to trust, what is real, and what is true. And this is only getting worse with AI. Demoralization has various aspects to it, but at its core, it's concerned with the systematic blurring of boundaries, moral, perceptual, and epistemic, with the ultimate goal of preventing people from extracting truth from available evidence. This blurring is reinforced through norms such as political correctness, where being nice replaces being honest, and where all religions, cultures, and values are treated as interchangeable. What follows is moral relativism. If nothing is better or worse, right or wrong, then a moral compass simply cannot form. As a result, most people lose the ability to orient themselves independently. Instead, they rely on approved narratives to tell them what is acceptable to think or say. Truth becomes less a matter of evidence and discernment and more a matter of social permission. In this way, demoralization doesn't require hiding information. It works by undermining the capacity to interpret it. I know this is getting a bit 1984 and dystopian, but stick with me. Demoralization at the perceptual level works by weakening people's ability to see real differences between skill, real genuine effort, and just any casual action, real meaning and emptiness. Art plays an important role in this by spreading nihilism, the idea that life has no inherent meaning. How? By removing standards before the craft is even learned. In many art schools, students are told there is no correct way to make art, that a quick gesture or a dot on a page is no different from a carefully studied and well-made work. When this happens, there is simply nothing left to aim for. Effort becomes hard to recognize, and failure stops teaching you anything because it ceases to exist. The key distinctions collapse. There's no longer any difference between intention and accident. And if nothing is wrong, then nothing can be learned. At a societal level, this teaches us that wanting excellence is naive, and wanting standards is authoritarian. Ambition is apathologized and treated as a flaw, and discipline is reframed as compliance, so seeking to improve in any way is not encouraged. Jonathan Haidt explains that every institution has one North Star, or primary goal, which he calls a telos. For a university, that goal is finding the truth. He warns that when these places try to chase a second goal, like a specific political or social justice agenda, they stop being able to do their first job well. By forcing people to agree with certain correct ideas instead of rewarding the best or most accurate work, the institution begins to prioritize ideological conformity that blinds them to reality, makes their experts less reliable, and ultimately it causes the public to stop trusting the institutions entirely. In The Righteous Mind, Haidt says that in some moral communities, excellence itself becomes suspicious. When excellence is viewed with suspicion, people lose the ability to judge clearly, and it becomes easier to direct people by approved narratives rather than by their own discernment. This isn't only in art. We're being told that seeing some cultures or countries as superior in development is wrong. There is an intolerance of standards in many fields, but there's a serious cognitive dissonance to this. Again, I'm not saying that some cultures are better than others in the sense of cultural identity. I think every culture has specific beauty to it, and that's where it gets tricky. What we're being taught is that saying that there's an absolute truth, or let's say a beauty standard, is Eurocentric and elitist, but that's simply not true. Look at these artworks. One is from China, the other is from Russia, and another is from Africa. Every culture is absolutely capable of beauty. Nevertheless, universal standards exist. We as humans value effort that leads to excellence, and it's so obvious that we have to develop a whole long theory and 4-year university course in order to break this very obvious notion and brainwash people into thinking that it's not the case. And all standards are bad, and people should be free to do whatever they want. Going back to Louis Althusser, demoralization has hurt us in ways that we don't even realize. What we call freedom in art, education, and culture today is often just the freedom to abandon any sort of responsibility and discernment. By telling us that all standards and hierarchies are oppressive and that truth is relative, society is training us to be passive consumers of ideology rather than liberating us, as many people think. Beauty, mastery, and excellence are supposed to serve as benchmarks that allow humans to recognize effort and meaning. To deny them is a subtle form of control, which is disguised as freedom. And here's why this is dangerous. Imagine walking into a museum. In one room, you see a painting that took 10 years to master. Composition, anatomy, color, perspective. You don't need a degree to recognize the effort. You simply know it. In the next room, there's a blank canvas with a paragraph on the wall explaining why it's important. If you feel confused or question it, you're told that confusion just means you don't get it. And if you prefer the first painting, you're told that maybe you're not educated and you don't understand art. What that is training people to distrust their own judgment. When people are taught not to trust what they can clearly see, they become dependent on authority to tell them what to think. And that is how the ideology wins. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. As I've said before, we're building a community of people who are honest about what's going on with art today.